Thank you for tuning into White Centipede Noise Podcast. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is made possible by viewer and listener support. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider supporting it at patreon.com/White Centipede Noise. White Centipede Noise is a label and mail order based in Germany, releasing top quality noise on tape, CD, and vinyl. White Centipede Noise is also the premier EU-based distributor of international noise. Visit whitecentipedenoise.com to see available label releases and weekly distro updates. Hello and welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast. Today my guest is one of the top guns of modern power electronics, also one of the most influential modern power electronics artists. Please welcome Sam Torres of Crawl of Time, as well as KOUFAR and Terracell Unit.
How's it going? Much love.
Hey Sam, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me.
Yes,
Good morning,
thanks for having me.
I
Appreciate it. Good morning.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
So, jumping right into your body of work, before Crawl of Time, you had a project called Miscreant.
Yes.
And, I've been listening to the collection CD that came out recently, and I've been really impressed by it, how it was very crude, but still had a lot of the modern kind of production techniques that you've developed further later. But some of those ideas are still there. So that's really interesting for me. And I want to know what led to the forming of Miscreant in the first place.
The forming of Miscreant was kind of came about because me and my partner in Miscreant, Lucas, we came up in the hardcore scene together, and we always wanted to play in a band, but we didn't know how to play guitar, bass, or drums, or any of the conventional instruments. Mm-hmm. It seemed like a bridge too far to get to a band together. It's like a lot of being in a band is a lot of moving pieces, you know, and even if you bring nothing to the table other than, hey, I could be the vocalist to your hardcore band, it's like nearly fucking impossible to find drummer, guitarist, whatever. So we started just getting hella stoned and fucking around with bass feedback. We were listening to a lot of Boris and Melvins. I'm a huge fan of the Melvins.
Okay. Cool.
Some of their stuff was it impacts me to this day. It's so fucking heavy, and that was, so we were kind of doing that kind of stuff early on, and then we were into agoraphobic nosebleed, and they had these really short burst power electronics type songs. So we just combined this weird drone worship type stuff that Melvin's was doing with these little bursts of agoraphobic nosebleed, and we'd record them in my mom's garage, or so on and so forth. And so that's kind of how we got it together, just out of not knowing how to play the fucking guitar,
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how we jumped that off.
Okay. But at least the material that I've heard is very much within the established power electronics realm.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Were you aware of that genre when you started this project?
No, not really. It seemed like we got hip to it after we're pretty much closing the project out, really, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
The most I heard as far as power electronics, straight up power electronics, was I used to work at this record store in San Jose called Streetlight Records, and before I worked there, you know, like record stores have like little CD listening stations, and they have like,
right,
you know, picks or whatever. There was a Death Pile GR, and it was just like that covers like so kind of like in your face, like it's interesting. It doesn't really tell you a lot, but it kind of grabs your attention, and it was so I put the headphones on and put it on the listening station, and it was what is it's like the quintessential power electronics release, you know? So it's like it slapped me in the fucking face, and like I didn't know that's what it was called. I was just like, this is fucking weird, like, and I bought the CD because it was so weird. Like at the time I was listening to like, this was even before I was into like anything remotely experimental. I was still listening to like chugga chugga breakdown metalcore bullshit and like death metal and stuff, you know, like and this was like the weirdest CD I had, like for sure. This and some random Melvin CD that this punk rock dude put me onto, and those were like the weirdest CDs. Oh, and maybe Neurosis Through Silver and Blood, because like I had an Ozfest sampler. Like I was totally into nu metal, and and Neurosis was on Ozfest. So it's all these nu metal bands, and then Neurosis playing Neurosis music, and I was like, this is the weirdest fucking shit I've ever heard in my life. But I automatically gravitated towards it because it wasn't like Crazy Town or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it was like some shit that is kind of life changing when you hear it. But that's like Death Pile GR was like the first, but I didn't know it was called power electronics. I didn't know it was called noise or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I just knew it was the most deranged shit I've ever heard.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And when you started closing down Miscreant, well, first of all, in Miscreant, can you tell me a bit about what the kind of the ideological focus and themes are of that project?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think Miscreant, like, it was definitely more like political or whatever, and me and Luke were definitely more into like, well, we lived in Santa Cruz too for a little bit, and we were definitely into like weird, well, weird for me now as like a 32-year-old man, but like I was like definitely more into like kind of like leftist, like anarchist politics and stuff like that, and but you know, different from that, I was like, I came up, and this is still like kind of, I have like a more modified version of this as an adult, but when I was younger, I was into, well, I still am, like I said, but like Chicano culture, and Chicano culture is like heavy, like indigenous focus. Like there's this concept of Aztlan, like the nation of Aztlan, which is like Mexico and these territories that were illegally annexed by the United States. California, you know, the Southwest, and like Colorado and a few other places. And so, you know, this is the stuff you, in California when you're Chicano, like growing up, this is what OGs tell you, like it's in gang culture, it's in your family's culture, it's in like every aspect of being like a Chicano, Mexican American. So it's like you learn about these things and you take pride in it, and we're really all about that. And we're also like super into like, you know, we're anti-war type cats because we listen to like Infest a lot, the band Infest. And Infest had like, they used and like in power violence bands, they used like this anti-war imagery of like Vietnam imagery and stuff, like dudes like being tortured and stuff. And so Miscreant, what we did was we appropriated the concept, like the imagery of bands like Infest and Crossed Out and Neanderthal, and we used kind of like war on terror images from Afghan and Iraq and so on and so forth, and use that as to push our like anti-imperialist message and stuff like that. So that's kind of more or less the vibe of the project. We're like super like Chicano nationalist types, and then anti-American imperialism and things like that. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, cool. How did that project wind down and evolve into Crawl of Time?
Well, I would say how it got to Crawl of Time is like a big part of Crawl of Time is like, okay, so for instance, Miscreant, although I'm talking about these concepts that are kind of much greater than me, like anti-imperialism, Chicano nationalism, so on and so forth. Miscreant is still a very personal project. Like, it's about us, me and Luke as men, growing up in this world and dealing with these types of things, and how we navigate society and whatever. But Crawl of Time is just I even boil it down even further, where it's like it's so personal. Now it's just like it's hard making music about anything other than the shit that I go through. So it's just it seemed like a natural progression, where it's like the shit that Miscreant was about, I'm still very much into, but like I just took it a step further and just made it more about like myself and the things that I go through on a personal level. So, and the music is totally different. Like, sometimes I hear the Miscreant shit, I'm like, dude, I always commend you Harsh Noise fools, because it's like, I can't fucking do that. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, you guys look at the modular synth, and people will be like, how do you do that? It's like, I look at the same, like, I read this interview you did with Miko, for Special Interests, right? And it was like some kind of gear talk, and I was just like, yeah, I could buy all the same gear that Oscar's using, but I could never do that. You know what I mean? And it's like,
sure.
But yeah, it's going back to what I was saying, is like the music is so different, and but like ultimately, I still draw on some of the messaging of Crawl of Time, like, or Miscreant for Crawl of Time, like the debut I did with Fusty Cunt, and then later on with Kindred, Operation Black Widow. Yeah, that's like that very well could have been a Miscreant project, you know?
Sure.
Because it's about gang culture and like the mind control within gang culture, and you know, what's left for you outside of gang culture when they've used you up and chewed you up and spit you out, and the person you are after gang life. That very well could have been a Miscreant thing, because as sad as it is gang culture is very one and the same with Chicano culture. They're very intertwined. They're synonymous with one another. So yeah.
So Operation Black Widow, it has a photo on the cover that I've gathered is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but I've gathered that's your father?
Yeah, it's my dad.
Can you give a bit of a background into the context of that album and how it personally relates to you? Because I want to,
for sure,
as much as you're comfortable. I mean, I know that Crawl of Time has a lot of very personal themes. I'd like to, if possible, hear about, you know, how those relate to your personal life.
For sure. So the cover of Operation Black Widow is my dad. It's a picture of my dad in where was he? I think he was in Tracy, in prison in Tracy, and I think he was 18 years old, and it's just, and I have the picture right here. I can bring it down. The actual photo.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the actual photo.
It's in color, yeah?
Yeah, it's in color.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that was him. And, you know, I have the photo of that because, and I decided to use that for the album because he was not the only member of my family that was involved in gangs or whatever, but he's my dad, you know? So it's like the most direct member of my family outside of like my brother who is involved in some stuff, you know what I mean? But, you know, and the album is not necessarily, I use his image because like he was the most direct person, but the album is more or less about, you know, anyone that could have fallen into the trap of being in a gang. Yeah. And because I got a first-hand account stories of my dad, because coming up, it's like, that could have been the future for me. That could have been the future for my brother. That's the future for a lot of homies I knew. Yeah. And it's a future for a lot of cousins and so on and so forth. Yeah. And so, you know, my dad would tell me these basically horror stories about being in a gang, and it's like there's a lot of almost mind control involved, where they teach you that that in society you have no worth, but in the gang you have value, and they can use your value for some kind of something greater than yourself. And it's very militaristic. They build bonds because the early stages of the gang my father was in, the NF, they would bring in the OGs of that gang were from they served time in Vietnam. So they would bring back this military mindset to the penitentiaries in California, and they would and you know, military, one thing they're good at doing is building camaraderie amongst the men. Right. So they would do this with the gangs, and it's a form of mind control. And you know, and at the end of the day, you're either in prison for the rest of your life, you're either dead or on drugs. Right. You know, and my father ended up being on drugs. Sure. You know, because there's a lot of, you don't just join a gang and you don't have a good ass childhood and join a gang. You have a lot of pain and trauma and so on and so forth and join a gang, because you're susceptible to you're just susceptible to pretty much anything. He could have joined a cult. That's basically what he joined. When you join a gang, you join a cult. Right. So, you know, so I used him as the poster boy for my album because, you know, that's he's the walking reality of what I was trying to convey, you know? Right.
Damn, that's deep. Because, I mean, of course, you know, what you say about people who come from broken, traumatic backgrounds are more susceptible to joining a gang. But it's crazy what you say about how the gang actively also tries to convey that message to the people who already have very low self-worth, of basically also reinforcing that, you know, you are useless to society.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which is, you know, probably what is already in these young people's heads that puts them in this position in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I've seen people who are like in their 20s join a gang, and I'm just like, dude, you're in your 20s. Yeah. Like, a lot of people I knew in gangs, and they start off as kids, like single digit numbers. Yeah. 9, 10, 12, and they're already in the hood. They're already in a situation where it's just, they just become that. Yeah. And then I see people 22, 23, 25 start gangbanging, and it's like, you're a fucking clown. You're a clown. Yeah. You have your whole life ahead of you. and you just decide to go ahead and do some stupid ass shit like that. It's so childish.
It's
and exactly. And it's like, motherfuckers don't got a choice early on when they're like a youngster, and then they get involved in gangs. Sometimes it's not by choice, man. And you're 22, 23
Absolutely.
years old, and you're like, oh, I decided that I'm going to be in a gang. That's the most clown shit I've ever heard, So it's like, it's really stupid.
For sure. How do you think you escaped that fate? Because I mean, just judging on a very stereotypical, superficial way, you're involved in experimental music,
for sure,
punk, metal, things that are kind of more associated with some sort of, I don't want to say privilege, but I mean, regular,
shit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, my dad was involved in that shit. I had and he was a good dad.
Yeah.
And by the time I was born, that was like the last stint of him ever being in prison or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had a good mother. Mother. Like, to me, my mother's everything, and she really like pulled out all the stops for me and my brother, and created a space where like I could get into shit like this. You know what I mean? I could do shit like this, where nothing like this wasn't like so foreign to me. Like, I was young, and I was into music, getting into music, and then started going to shows, and then started linking up with the homies from shows, and then started wanting to be in music. It's like a whole progression. It's just like I had a good family, like that matters to me, and that still matters for a lot of people, and like
for sure,
it wasn't the best, but it's important that you have like a solid foundation, and I'm thankful to them that like I'm able to do the shit that I'm doing now, because I wouldn't be like in this position if it wasn't for my folks,
Yeah, for sure. Cool. What kind of feedback has there been from people about those elements of your music and your projects? Because for one, they're very unique to power electronics, and particularly when they're coming from a very authentic and genuine place. I mean, there's plenty of appropriation of different theme. People like to say themes because they say, "Oh, I'm going to read a bunch of books about this kind of war or this sort of political party," and like do themed stuff around that. But a lot of times it's just kind of like a studied, almost purely aesthetic thing. But this is your life, and what kind of people have you had, or what kind of interactions have you had with people regarding those themes?
Well, I would say it's really positive. It's really positive because of the fact that it's coming from a personal experience, and even like beyond like the Operation Black Widow shit. Like, I did the tape Moments of Pleasure, Years of Pain on New Forces, and that tape is like all about like forgiveness. Like me, I'm a person who does not fucking forgive anyone. I will die happily like hating you. And that tape is like my mom passed away in 2018, and my aunt was on drugs and all this crazy shit. Like, she was just like a drug user since I asked her a couple months ago, like, when did you start doing drugs? She's like in her 50s now. And I was like, when did you start doing drugs? She said 13. So I was like, so you did drugs from 13 to 54 or 52 or whatever. Like, that's a tremendous amount of time doing drugs. And you don't just do drugs and everyone loves you. You do drugs and you fucking burn people and everyone hates you, and you fail people and you do all this stuff. So I made that tape because after my mother's death, my aunt stopped doing drugs, cold turkey, and then it was like really trying to step up for the family and shit. And like I was like trying to I was rejecting her hardcore. Like, get the fuck away from me. I'm like grieving. I don't like you. I know what you're all about. And she just like kept trying. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe if I just like open myself up and try to forgive her, it will help me heal with the shit that I'm dealing with the loss of my mother. And it hurt me a lot, and it was really tough to do that. And I did it, and then eventually I felt amazing. You know what I mean? And like now she's in my life, and she's like my mother now. You know what I mean? But why I bring that up is because people were hitting me up based off that tape, reading the lyrics and that shit, and being like, "Yo, like I've dealt with shit like this before."
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really glad that, you know, someone is putting out shit like this because, you know, like you're saying, oftentimes in this shit that we do is like, it's like there's these themes like serial killer fools and all this nonsense or whatever. It's like, that's cool and everything, but like sometimes like motherfuckers want to listen to shit that's relatable. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like a lot of dudes that try to be hella macho or whatever and like don't want to talk about shit like that, but it's like, I'm comfortable being macho or whatever, and that's like a part of who I am too. But like, also like, we got to talk about shit like this because we all go through this. All of us, in some kind of way, we're all dealing with some grief, some turmoil, some depression, some anxiety, and that's if I could make someone feel good with them, with my work resonating with them in that way, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Awesome. Well, rest in peace to your mother, and I think that's
thank you.
That's a great story. I was going to ask about the context of that tape, so thank you for sharing that. Okay, it's time for a quick commercial break here. First of all, since we recorded this episode, Sam has recorded and released a new Crawl of Time EP. It's a Bandcamp only. It's called Demons in My Sleep, and it's available at crawloftime.bandcamp.com. Go check it out for sure. It was released just Friday, so just a few days before this is airing now. So be sure to check that out for his newest and freshest release and support his work. In addition to that, there are 5 new releases coming up on White Centipede Noise. Hopefully in about 2 or 3 weeks they'll be out. 5 CDs. 3 are already here. New Skin Graft album called Final Judgment. This was actually slated and recorded for Tronics before they went on hiatus, so I was lucky enough to inherit it. Amazing album. You guys know Skin Graft. You know it delivers. Maranata Tarmac. This is a group. John Wesseltoft and another guy. I'm forgetting his name, but it's super, super harsh, thick electronics and saxophone. And it's not like you might think. It's not totally skronky. It's like a blast of hot energy. It's really, really good. Mastered by Lasse Marhag. They're Norwegian dudes, kind of from that same world. And there's a Grainbelt Midwestern Companion CD featuring absolutely amazing artwork by Pat Yankee. This is a collection of most of the short tapes and comp tracks from Grainbelt. Grainbelt being collaboration project with more of a band, Wince, me, Sam Soxon from Phage Tapes, Baculum, and Joe Barris, who did a project called Willful. It was our junk noise trio that was quite active back when we all lived in Minneapolis. In addition to that is waiting on Kakerlak CD reissue of The Heat of the Whole and Temporary and Successive Stages. Those 2 tapes that were on Thorax Harsh cassettes combined into 1 disc, and the CD version of the Worth Sacred Violence Noise cassette that was released on White Centipede Noise year or so ago, I guess now. So yeah, those will be out in 2 to 3 weeks, I hope, just waiting on the last 2, and then we get it all sorted out. In addition to that, I want to remind everyone who's watching, If you enjoy this podcast, please support it at patreon.com/White Centipede Noise. The podcast takes a ton of my time. There are also inherent costs, platform fees, equipment, software. I'm also looking at finding a way to pay some Japanese translators pretty soon. So if you can imagine what that means, supporting it really, really goes a long way in helping me do this and carry it on. In addition to that, you get access to White Centipede Noise TV content, which is bonus content, which is kind of in a class of its own. It's a break off of the podcast, but it's a variety of things. So I do follow-up episodes. I do follow-up interviews with guests called After Blast series. I've already talked to Sam Stockton and Phage Tapes and Taylor about running a label. We get into a lot of really specific stuff about running a label, about a 2-hour plus discussion on that. I talked to Eric Neustrand about journalism, media, and noise. I've started doing reviews. I have a show where I just rant about my views on noise called Noise on the Run, usually when I'm like in a different city or country at the time and need to get something off my chest. I'm also working on a series called Label Spill, which will be really talking more in depth about noise label business and how that all works, and lots more in the works as technology and opportunities present themselves. So super interesting stuff, and the support goes a really long way in keeping this show going. €5 a month is, I don't know. I know everything's really expensive right now, but that's like a beer. That's like a beer a month at the bar. That's like a sandwich. There's also going to be a discount code for this upcoming CD batch available for Patreon supporters. And if everything goes well and support keeps holding up and I'm able to invest in some new equipment soon, I will be returning to weekly episodes of the podcast in July, as well as additional White Centipede Noise TV content. So thanks again for checking everything out. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the feedback. Really, really appreciate it. Glad you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Please support. Thank you, and back to Sam.
Did you ever write lyrics before you started doing power electronics? Did you ever write text or anything, prose, poetry, or anything of that nature?
I did, yeah. I would always like write, and I would do these like little exercises where I'd write lyrics of other bands, just write them down, and like to get into their frame of mind for writing or whatever, because it's something I've always enjoyed. Like I always enjoyed books and poetry, like Bukowski and stuff like that, and I've just been a fan of lyrics from whether it's hardcore bands, metal bands, hip hop. Just like if you got a good pen, I'm very invested in what you have to say. Yeah. So like I've always been a writer, and and right now I feel like my writing is like it's pretty fucking good right now. Like I'm impressed with myself because I used to hate my shit. I used to hate my writing, and now I've just like I feel like I'm a mix of all my influences writing wise, and I feel like I'm finally comfortable with my pen game. Yeah. So but yeah, prior to Miscreant, I would always write.
Yeah. I feel like that's a big step with writing, because I think there's oftentimes a long gap where you probably don't like what you write. I mean, I know that when I look back at things that I've done like a year ago or 5 years ago, I don't write much, and I particularly now, but I mean, it's always like kind of looking back on it, it's like, oh, okay, this sucks.
Yeah,
and in the moment it's all right. In the moment it's important, but I mean, I think that's a big milestone just to reach as someone who writes text, to be just simply even just comfortable or confident about it, that it's okay, this is good.
Yeah. I fell off with writing for a long time because when Mac and I were doing Terracell Unit, he would write a lot, and Mac is like a great writer, great writer. And he would do it, and then after a while, he would be like, I don't really like have an idea because like between Terracell Unit and writing for KOUFAR, you know, I would spread this motherfucker very thin. You know, it's like we would record some Terracell Unit shit, and he would do vocals, and then he would have to write, and then it's like, okay, we got to finish this KOUFAR tape, so you have to do vocals and write the lyrics, and then he would send me the lyrics, and I'd be like, this shit sucks. Like, it's like he would have me go over all his lyrics, and I would just be like, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good, this sucks, this is fucking horrible, you know. And so then eventually I was like, all right, maybe I should kind of, you know, step up and start writing some lyrics. So he gave me a lot of confidence. So like I started writing more for Terracell Unit, and I was like writing a bunch, like just going crazy. And then that gave me the confidence going into Crawl of Time. Like, I feel pretty good right now.
Going back to your family quick, I was curious, does your family know, or if they know, do they get what you do as an artist, as a musician? Like Crawl of Time and the powertronic side of things?
They don't. They know about it, and they're extremely supportive. Like, if you go to my grandma's house, she has a picture of me and Lucas performing as Miscreant hanging. Cool. They also have, like, my Terracell Unit albums, like my first LP. Like, they had me sign it, and, like, they hung it up in their house. So they fuck with my shit. Like, they get it, and they don't understand the music, but they're very proud. They're very proud, you know, like, and that makes me feel very good, you know, like, the other day my dad, like, replied to one of my Instagram stories and was, like, telling me he was proud of me, because I played a show a couple days, and I was like, that makes me feel good, you know, they don't know what the fuck this is, because there's not a guitar and a bass and whatever on drums on stage, but they know that I'm passionate about it, so they really, like, they're hella supportive of what I do. And my dad used to be like, my dad worked construction pretty much forever, right? And he used to be like, I never understood what those boys were doing in the garage. And then I kind of like figured out what they were doing. Like, he said it was like, he said it's like industrial. And he doesn't know what that is or any of that shit. But that's what he said, and I was like, he gets it. Because he fucking works industrial. He works in construction. He knows what's up. He hears those sounds that we're trying to create with pedals and synthesizers and all this other shit. So he got the gist of it, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So going, like you mentioned your gear just now, tell me a bit about your gear and your technological process, because I know that you work with a lot of modern technology. I know you work with a lot of Eurorack stuff. Can you tell me how important is gear and technology in your creative process?
I would say it's really important. And you know, it's crucial. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without it. But like, it's all about like diversifying your mindset. Because like, I know a lot of people are like, I hate digital, I won't use digital. It's like, well, you've just closed off like half the game. Or people are like, analog, I got to worry about dialing it in and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you just closed off the other half of the game. Right. And me, it's like, there's shit that I've reintroduced into the game, into my game. Like, tape shit. Like, a lot of the stuff that's coming out has, like, little tape loop layers and stuff that I thought I put to bed years ago. Because there was a time where me and Mac were, it's like, when we were on a good run with Terracell Unit, it was just fucking synth. Yeah. And just, that was the name of the game. Yeah. And I was like, there's certain things and different vibes and that I wanted to create, but I needed to bring back techniques that I learned in the past, and then create new techniques. But yeah, it's all very crucial, you know, like, but I have a couple synths, or I have, a few synths that I keep on deck 100% of the time. And then I'm not above, what I tend to do is sell all kinds of shit, all my gear, and then buy new shit. And then I have to relearn I have to learn new shit and then learn new techniques, and it keeps me fresh. It keeps me on my toes, because I don't think it'd be very interesting if I put out 5 tapes with the same shit. Like, it's like, you have to be really creative to make one synth sound, 100 different ways for your whole career as a musician. Yeah. There's, I have a Korg MS-10, which is probably one of my favorite synths. And I used to have an MS-20, but for some reason when I went to Europe, these guys were all about this MS-10, and I got to see them play. I got to see several people play with this MS-10, and it was just so much. The MS-20 is very complex. As a matter of fact, when Mac and I were getting our first synthesizers, our early synthesizers, he wanted to get an MS-10, and then that patch bay was like so intense and intimidating. I talked him out of it. I said, dude, we'll never get off the ball with this. Yeah. If you get this, because the curve is so high. Like, so he ended up getting this other synthesizer, and our shit took off a lot faster because he was just able to dive right into it. Yeah. So the MS-10 was just kind of like a simpler version of that, and it just, like, I really gravitated towards it, and I use it on every recording. I have it. It's going to be used in some fashion in what I do, but all the other shit changes around it. Like, that's the cool thing about modular shit. Is like, you can just sell that module, get another module, get this, get that. And I've reintroduced, like, guitar pedals into my shit because they have their worth, There's some shit that pedals can do that modules can't, There's some sounds that these pedals they're known for. They're on these legendary recordings, and you might not be able to use it in the same fashion as the person who, revolutionized certain pedals, but you can certainly integrate it into what you do. Yeah. So I just use a lot of different stuff. But right now, I have, I just kind of simplified my setup. I sold a bunch of shit, and I realized I had 4 samplers, 4 drum machines, 18 mono synths, and I'm like, why? Why do I have this? I got rid of all my drum machines because I started making my own drum sounds out of, like, oscillators and stuff. And it's just more gratifying to me and rewarding to do that. It takes fucking forever, mind you, but it's just better to shape your own shit for me. And so I was like, I don't need these 9 drum machines that I have. That's a quick buck right there. Like, I just got rid of it all, just got rid of it all. Sure. Yeah.
For someone who doesn't know a ton about modular stuff, what are some exciting tips or exciting basics that you can tell me?
So I think of modular and synthesizers in general as, if you go to a foreign country and like how to ask where the restroom is, where the food is, how to get to the subway. So, like, little, easy phrases, and you can get around. That's how I think of modular synth. Like, the language is very dense, but if you know, like, certain building blocks and certain basics, you can navigate it, and you can, and with, like, almost a ignorance of it, you can do a lot. Because if you know everything there is to know, you become very rigid. You're like, I have to put this into this, and then this into that. And it's like, that's not me. I'm not like a reading a manual type motherfucker. I'm like, let me just touch it first. I need to touch it. I need to put my hands on it, and I need to fill it out, and I need to just be with it, spend some time with it, and kind of learn it my own way. But I think if people are looking to get into modules, it's like you want to look at how a regular synthesizer is built, like a fixed synth. Right. It's got your oscillator, filter, envelope generator, and just kind of build it like that. And then you can start getting all the weird, quirky little modules that do so on and so forth. Right. That's kind of more or less how I started it. But now my shit is a lot of filters and effects and like random generators and stuff like that. And I kind of have it like in that sweet spot. Like there isn't much that I need. There's a few modules that Mac's getting on my ass about getting that I'm gonna get, but right now I'm in that sweet spot. That sweet spot. And then one thing, if you're making like industrial or power electronics or harsh noise or things of that nature, one thing you got to realize is like you see all these modules that do all this crazy shit, and then you have to remind yourself that you're not making techno, so you don't need to fucking get that shit because it's not going to serve you well. It's not going to do anything you want to do. Because it's so above, like, what that music is so complex, and our music is really not, you know? Right. Like, it can get complex, but at the end of the day, our music is there's a pace and a tone that it's always going to have. Right. Like, even the most experimental out there artists, they're always going to have that baseline of, like, what they do is what everyone else does, you know? So you just kind of have to, like, think about it like in that sense. Like you don't want to go too big, because it might not serve you any purpose other than you're flexing on fools because you have this $700 module that you don't even know how to fucking use. Get the fuck out of here with that, you know? Yeah.
And then what about for the real heads out there? Because I get hit up a lot about people who are like, oh, like you should do more about gear, and like after I talked to Mac, they're like, oh, you should. I would have loved to hear more about Eurorack shit, you know. And so I mean, what can you tell? What are a few like recent real gems that you have discovered, or techniques, or pieces of equipment that you might be willing to share?
Of course. So for the module side, I'll tell you like the end all be all module for me that has completely changed the game, and it's called the Loquelic Iteritas Presido. It's an oscillator drum module by Noise Engineering, and this module this is why I sold all my drum machines, because I just make drums with this. That's it. I stopped all the bullshit of having all this unnecessary clutter, and I just have this one drum module, and within that drum module I can make whatever I want, however I want it to sound, and I combine it with this module called Marbles. It's like a random like generator, and I kind of use it as a sequencer almost, right? Or it's like I use it to create patterns. So you could create crazy wacky patterns and like they're totally random, or like really simple things. And I just find the sweet spot. There's like little sweet spots, and once you're at the sweet spot, you just like let it be and see if that's like what you want to go for, and then you just you can adjust it from there. But that Loquelic, I'm telling you, if you're struggling to find the right drum machine for your industrial or power electronics project, and you're looking to get into Eurorack, that module's it's like $500, but you know, if you really think about it, it'll pay for itself once you start releasing music, and it's really been the cornerstone of like everything I'm putting out now. It's on every track. Cool. Yeah.
And then I'm curious. I've seen you live on stage sometimes with a laptop, and I'm curious what are you running on that, and how is that interacting with your setup?
I'm using Ableton Live, and I use like a push controller, and a lot of it is like backing stuff, like simple backing layers, and then I just build on top of it. You know, because there's some stuff where it's like when you're recording, you capture lightning in a bottle, and it can never be recreated ever again. You know? Yeah,
that's also my curiosity about these modules, because you know many of them seem to be with knobs, which are some sort of like gradient.
Yeah,
a lot of them don't have like set settings, so I mean, I imagine it could be very, very hard to recreate things in a live setting.
Yeah, it can be, and that's why the Ableton comes, or any kind of sampler comes into play. Yeah, because it's just good for certain aspects of the live game. But there's other shit where it's like I was joking with a friend the other day, like, you know, when you're playing a show and someone comes up to you and it's like, you're breaking down and they want to know like the specifics of what you got going on, and some guy was like, oh, what's this patch? He like wanted me to explain the patch, and I was like, bro, this is like, first of all, I don't want to have this fucking conversation with you right now. Second of all, like, this is a patch that like I figured out, like, and it's so ignorant that I'm not even going to tell you because you'll think I'm fucking stupid. Like, it's just something that I figured out that works every fucking time, and I can play it live every time. Yeah. And that it's perfect for what I need it to do. But it's just like, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it with you right now. I just like can't. But yeah, there's certain, like with that drum machine module, like now I know how to like dial it in, like to whatever I need immediately, so it's like I have no problem doing that, but it took me a while to like get to that level, you know, like it took me like hell long to like learn it, but you know, like I said, samplers and Ableton come into play when you're trying to replicate those lightning in a bottle moments of studio recordings.
Is it important for you that power electronics advances sonically from kind of old school roots?
Fuck yeah, it is. It's incredibly important. Like, I don't want it to become stagnant, you know, like, I don't think it's in anyone's best interest for it to remain like some super culty type thing. It's like, yeah, that's cool and everything, and I respect all the OGs that are doing that, but like new fools that are trying to like replicate that, it's like, you're not that. You'll never be that. Right. So like, just do what you got to do, and you know, bring something fresh to the table, bring something that people are interested in, because at the end of the day, you're never going to be that old school shit, because old school is old school and you're just some fucking guy. So we need you to step up and step out and do what you got to do, you know? Right. Like, trust me, like, I love all that old cold shit and all the stuff that exists, and that is all the stuff from the past that I wouldn't be here if it didn't exist. I enjoy all that stuff, but it's like, I don't have it in me to create that style. I'm not interested in creating that style. I'm interested in just trying to bring something new to the table, and I'm gonna listen to you if you're trying to bring something new to the table. Like, if you're just rehashing old shit, I have no interest in listening to your project. Don't DM me, sending me shit. Like, I'm just not gonna fuck with it. I'm not gonna buy your tape. But if you're doing something new and fresh, I want to support that. You know, I'm trying to. I want to see the shit evolve, you know?
Yeah. What influence does hip-hop have on your power electronics work?
Oh, it has a tremendous influence on what we do. Like, for instance, if you think about KOUFAR, My Name Is My Name, on that album, we have 2 tracks that Mac and I don't play on. And that's one that Jim from Deterge has a track, and one that Peter from Interracial Sex has a track. And we came up with that idea because I remember like listening to Only Built for Cuban Links, as you know. Raekwon has this whole album, and then he has a song where it's just Ghostface.
Dude, that's crazy. I think it's so cool.
Just Ghostface.
Yeah.
He said, "This is my homie."
Yeah.
And it's my album. It's going to be a classic album, but I'm going to have just him on a track to showcase his ability. Yeah. And me and Mac were like, that concept is so fucking foreign to anything we do. Everything we do in this shit is like a collab, like a feature. Like hip hop has features, we have collabs. Yeah. It's the same thing, but it's like, I was like, we could do something different and just have them make their own track for our album.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, so it's like that. Album art, you know, just like lyrical content, just try to focus on
stage presence, right?
Yeah, stage presence, you know, like when we do TCU and KOUFAR, we have a fucking we have a stage presence, like an intense stage presence. And people always say, like, always comment on that and compliment that. And I think it's really cool, you know, because, you know, you want to stand out, and, you know, and hip hop's like, I listen to hip hop basically 95% of the time, just because if I find myself listening to other like noise or industrial shit while I'm trying to record, like I will just bite without like thinking about that I'm biting. You know what I mean? Like it's like a comedian who steals a joke but never saw the other performer perform the joke. It's just that parallel thinking. Yeah. It's like, it can be like that with noise. It's like, oh, I did this, and then, oh, I just bit this fool's whole shit right now. Yeah. So it's like, I try to like get influences from other genres of music, you know? Yeah. Like, and hip hop being the primary influence on a lot of the shit that me and Mac do. Like right now with God is War, Mac has taken that shit to the next level of influence, you know? And like me, it's like my aesthetics are definitely coming from hip hop, and it's just always going to be there now because it's like no one else is kind of doing that. And if I've seen other people try to do it, but it's just, it comes across like a little kind of cheesy. So it's just, you gotta take the good from these genres and appropriate it within our aesthetic that already exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You've of course now mentioned Mac numerous times, and I haven't asked about him yet, but obviously we know you guys are very close friends and collaborators, and you are a member of KOUFAR and Torres unit. Can you tell about getting to know Mac, how you got to meet him, and how you guys grew to work together?
Yeah, for sure. We met Mac back in the day. Me and Luke from Miscreant met Mac back in the day because we wanted to do a KOUFAR release on our label, Crimes Against Skin, and at the time he wasn't doing KOUFAR, so he offered us male compliments, right? And that was pretty legit. And you guys talked about that on your your guys' episode. Yeah. But yeah, like, and then he told us he was moving out to the Bay, and we're in Santa Cruz. Me and Luke were in Santa Cruz and San Jose, and he was moving out to Foster City with his fam. And so he came out, and then he would come out to Santa Cruz like pretty often because we're like at the time was, you know, locally like the only people he knew that were doing the shit that he was doing. Mm-hmm. So we just started linking up like all the time, like kicking it on the reg. Like we wouldn't even make music. He would just come through and we'd kick it and we listen to music and smoke weed and just hang out. And then because I was doing Miscreant, and then at the time he was doing Crown of Cerberus, and like that was his primary focus, was Crown of Cerberus. And we went on tour together. That was like the first tour I ever did, was Miscreant and Crown of Cerberus, and that was pretty cool. And then eventually we linked up and out in Oakland, and then Miscreant was kind of on the outs, and Mac was not. KOUFAR was on an indefinite hiatus. Like before, it was like up in the air whether or not he was going to do it, but he just said, "No, I'm not doing it anymore." And he was doing Crown, but he was also feeling very like stagnant with that. So he was like, "Hey, let's work on this project. I have an idea for something called Torres Unit." He had the name ready to go, and we just started working on that shit immediately. And then from there, like, we're struggling. A good part of the history of Miscreant and the history of Torres Unit early on is struggling to record. Like, we didn't know any recording techniques, how to do anything. We had like the weirdest rigs, and when you find out all you need is, like, at least for us, like a USB audio interface for that's built into the mixer. It's like a fucking game changer if you're an idiot, you know? Like like once we figured that out, it was like that's when, like, there was this period where, like, Torres Unit was just like releasing fucking just like we're just dropping project after project. It's because we figured out, we found the cheat code of how to record. And we would spend so much fucking time together. Like, we worked together, and he'd be at my house from Monday to Thursday, and we bonded over the fact that we wanted to put out the hardest shit. Like, we would just be listening, we'd record, and then we'd be like in the recording space, like fucking hyped. Like, we'd be like animals, dude. We'd be drinking like pots and pots of coffee. And just like it just seeing red. Like, just all the Torres Unit recordings, like, of that time, between, like, I don't know, like 2017 to 2019 it was just the fuel for that shit was just fucking piss and vinegar, man. Like, it was, and Mac likes to go to that level, like the deepest level of, like, your anger and hatred, and like he likes to, and then he'll be like, "Come, it's nice down here," you know. And then you're like, and then you'll go in there with him, and then he's just like, "See, look at it, it's everything I said it was," and you're just like you're just feeding off each other. And he's the hardest working motherfucker. Like, there's people that, like, I don't like to collab with people because people get weird. They get real weird with the collabs. There's only like one other person I like collabing with is Jackson of Hurricrat, because me and him we connect on like a variety of different levels outside of this music shit. So, like, he's just easy to talk to. Easy, like, if I say, "Hey, I want this," he gives me that. If he asks me the same thing, I give him what he asks. Mac is just like tremendously hardworking. Like, he'd be working before I got up in the morning, and then he's like, "You ready to go?" I got the coffee ready, and I'm like, "Dude, it's 9:30 a.m. and he's just like fucking chomping at the bit to get it going. So it's like he gave me a lot of focus and drive, and like a lot of the work ethic I have. Well, I would say all of the work ethic I have is because of Mac. Like, straight the fuck up, because no one's gonna get it done like him, and I could put money on that for sure.
Wow, that's cool. When you work together, what are your strengths and weaknesses, like, or maybe your different roles, and how does that dynamic work?
I think, well, our strengths, we just complement each other in weird ways. Like, I don't know, like Mac, he's very relentless. So when I feel like I'm gonna just tap out, and there's nothing more I can give to this guy, he'll manage to bring out something that's out of me that's like a game changer, like for the recording. Where just as I was ready to bow out, he's like, "No, there's something there," you know, and in a sense, it's like I do the same for him. It's like when I fall off, he's there to pick me up, and when he falls off, I'm there to pick him up. Like, I think like, yeah, we both wanted to be successful with this stuff, and like we both really don't want to do anything other than this shit is like the main factor of why we work well together. Because there's a lot of people with the music stuff that's like that are half in and half out, you know.
Right.
You know, they do this because it's like cool. It's like they can post on their Instagram. It's like aesthetic shit or whatever, right. Or they got homies, or you know they release one tape and fucking that's it. They're never gonna release anything. They did it because it's cool or funny. It's like a lot of people treat it like a joke or something, you know. Like, and Mac has never treated it like that, and I don't treat it like that. I don't fucking treat my shit like a joke because it's hella serious to me. Whatever the project is. So I think since we both are serious about it, we both come into a recording session with the same mindset, like with the intent of like putting out something that people are gonna fuck with. Like we're not gonna put out trash. We're not. Right. We're just not gonna do that. Like some people can get away with putting out nonsense just because their name or they don't give a fuck that what people have to say about their projects. But we honestly do care if people like our shit, you know?
Yeah.
We work really fucking hard on it. We work really hard on it. Like, we don't just record, you know, an hour of the day. Like, we on a lot of our recordings, we spent days, all day long doing this shit, all day long. So it's like, we're like competitive with each other when we're together, you know? Like, you know, so that's kind of how we get down because we both take it so seriously.
Cool. And do you kind of split up responsibilities? Because you mentioned earlier with lyrics that you know he was writing a lot, and you would be kind of editing them. You know, looking them over and being like, okay, this is good, this is bad. Do you guys share equal roles in like vision and ideas, or is one person like more ideas and the other person is more execution?
We share pretty much equal roles for sure. You know, like for instance, like when we'd be recording together, like live in the flesh, he would sit down and with his synthesizer, and he'd be recording, and I'd be like chilling on the couch and be like, "Oh, there it is, record that," and he would record it. And then he would call me over, and he's like, "Okay, now work on something that goes on top of that." And then I would be sitting there working on something. And then he'd be like, "There it is." And then we'd play our layers together, and it's just like money, you know?
Yeah.
And then as far as like visuals and aesthetics and lyrics and stuff, it's like a lot of that stuff works itself out and fleshes itself out in conversation, like just chopping it up. We'd be out front smoking a cigarette, having conversations, and you know, you just get an idea. You know, like we're both pretty good at visual art, but I've definitely fallen off visually, like because music takes up a lot of my energy.
Sure.
So for Terrace Honey, we'd outsource a lot of our art and stuff, and like I've become good at like explaining to people what it is I need, like directing. You know what I mean? Like I want this, and this. Like, can you give me that? And then I get back the album art for Operation Black Widow, exactly as it just real, like my words and intentions and all that shit realized, and like it's perfect. So it's like, if I could put it in someone else's hands that I trust, I'd rather do that. But like if I have to, and I think going forward, I'm going to start getting down more visually. But yeah, a lot of the other stuff, like we worked that out in conversation. Like in newer Terror Cell Unit shit, where like I'm going to be doing vocals, because Mac has been doing vocals forever, and it takes a toll on him. You know what I mean? Like he's one hell of a showman, and he's never gonna stop doing what he does, like vocally. Like he's one of the best vocalists out there, you know, and he's never gonna stop that because people love hearing him. Yeah, they love hearing him. But you know, him and I have talked about it, and I'm gonna start doing vocals now that I'm more comfortable, because Crawl of Time doing vocals. I'm gonna start doing vocals for Terror Cell Unit, and we're kind of working that out.
Cool. And you never did vocals in Terror Cell Unit before?
I did, like, kind of early on, like, live, and then I was like, I suck. I hate this. I suck. I'm trying to do something that I'm not comfortable with, and then, like, I finally developed a style that I feel comfortable with, and, like, you know, I was, like, trying to scream or something, you know, and I was just, like, not good at that. Like, I thought I was good at it with Miscreant, and then, like, I tried doing it, and I was like, I'll never be as good as Mac at screaming or whatever. And then we saw, like, Genocide Organ and Anunzaphalia, and they have, like, many different vocal styles. Yeah. Like, really intense, and then more, like, talking with effects. And Mac's like, you can always try that. And then and then I started doing that, and I was like, hey, I found my style. I bit off those guys, but I found my fucking style. It works for me, so, yeah.
Well, I'm stoked to hear that on the Terror Cell Unit stuff. Are you guys aware of how influential you are in modern power electronics?
Yes and no. Like, yes, because when people hate on you, you're like, oh, we're doing something right. Right. And I do get a lot of folks that hit me up and show, like, hell of love, tremendous amount of love, and tell me outright that we influence them. So it's like, with those two combined, like, I'm aware of it, you know, and it makes me feel good, and I never thought I'd be in a position where, like, I'm influencing people, because, like, I just, like, when I was doing Miscreant or whatever, I never, like, imagined I'd be, as I was saying earlier, just sonically, like, from Miscreant sound to Crawl of Time's current sound, I never thought I would even make it that far sonically, so I never thought I would even make it this far in general, you know, like, to where I'm at right now. So when people are say they're influenced by us, you know, it definitely makes me feel good, you know. It's like, we've been in the game for hella years already. Like, I've been making music since 2008, 2009. So it's like, if there's people making shit after, they've heard our stuff and they know what's up, you know what I mean? And if they're influenced by us, that's a good thing, you know. It means that there's room for people who are trying to change the game, and there's people who are trying to who are receptive to that idea, those concepts, and want to move the genre forward. Like, we're all about that. So if we can influence in that way, then that's amazing. Yeah. We're all about that.
What's the hate like? Where do you see that, and what's that all about?
Oh, the hate is just jealousy. It's just weird. You know, it's always weird when people are jealous of me. It's like, of what? Like, I still have a full-time job at a place where I get shit on by the public and by my coworkers. Like, my life isn't perfect. I'm always in some kind of turmoil with friends and family and relationships and otherwise. And like, I remember one guy was like, I think Mac was like, these guys are fake Christians, and I saw their one of their YouTube page, and I see where they get all their samples from on YouTube, and I was like, I'm a fake Christian, okay, whatever, dude. I was just at church.
Oh, they said that about you?
Yeah, they said that about me. I was a fake Christian or whatever, and I was like, okay, and then that's cool. Like, you can believe what you think I believe or whatever. It doesn't matter to you, but I've been to church like 3 times this month. Like, don't worry about what the fuck I believe in, okay? Yeah. Like, worry about you. And then they're like looking at my sample selection off of YouTube. It's like, dude, where else am I gonna get this shit, man? You think they expect you to like crawl through like these fucking bunkers to get the most obscure sample. It's like, you get your shit off YouTube, motherfucker. You get it off there too. So don't try to come at me like you're the most obscure motherfucker out there or whatever, because you're not that guy. You're not that guy. So like, you get just, I've had dudes be like, oh, their parents bought all their merch or bought all their gear, and it's like, dude, my dad was a janitor at the 49er stadium. Yeah. Like, he's not buying me anything. Yeah. He still owes child support to a lot of his kids, so his wages are garnished. He can't offer me shit. Yeah. I bought all that all the gear myself, and all the gear off my wages. And a lot of the gear that I bought was off of merch, off of the output that I put work into. Yeah. Off of my recordings, off of my muscle, I bought all that shit. Yeah. So just because you're fiddling with 2 tape players and got a drug habit, don't mean that my daddy's buying me shit. No, no, it don't work that way. I bought my own shit. I'll always buy my own shit. So you just get haters. You just get haters, weird ass haters, jealous over nothing. It's weird being jealous over like a regular dude. Be jealous off of fucking celebrity because they got the shit that you want. I don't got anything that you want. Trust me. I got a headache. You can have that.
But it's usually not to your face, right? It's usually like,
bro, never,
or directly.
Never
usually kind of second. It's usually like second degree.
Second hand. Yeah. There's people for a while that would be hitting me up with like screenshots of what people were saying about me or Mac, and I'd have to tell them like, yo, like, hey, do me a favor and don't bring that shit my way, because I really don't give a fuck unless a motherfucker's gonna come up to my face and want to get down and talk about it or want to fight me over it. Like, I really don't got the energy to be looking at screenshots of some dude hating on me. I really don't got the energy for that shit. Like, it's so weak. It's weak. If you hate on somebody like that and you're not willing to be real in the flesh, like, I don't have time for you. I don't.
For sure. Do you ever feel, in general, I mean, beyond that, disillusioned with the power electronics noise industrial scene? Do you feel like you're a happy, active member, or is it something you like to kind of be on the outskirts of?
I like to be both sometimes. Like, I feel like I'm an happy, active member, and it feels really good to be a participant in this because I want to be one of the people that are changing the game and forward thinking and all that. But then sometimes I want to be like more in the cut and more kicking back, because there's some people that are they have too big of a platform for how narrow-minded they are. Like, they take up a lot of space, but they're not offering anything new to the table. And it's like, well, you know, you can be over there and do your thing. I'm going to be over here and do my thing. Like, we can cross paths and recognize each other, that we all exist in this stratosphere. But, you know, you don't want to change. You want to stay the same, and we want to change, and we want to make things better. And we want to keep it pushing and keep evolving and all that stuff. So sometimes I feel like just by thinking that way, I'm alienated by like half of the the people in the scene, you know, because they don't want that. They want to stay as stagnant as possible.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think there's also just in general the ability to be an artist that's really, like, you are obviously extremely focused on your work and you focus on creating it and putting it forward, but there are also artists like who do that, but then they aren't really involved in, like, you know, a lot of the networking correspondence that goes on with it. Because I mean, the social element and the scene element is a huge part of it for some people, and for some people, it's bigger than the creation, and that's fine. I mean, I think that's totally fine. Some people are just, they like to be in. That's what gets them off, as being involved. And there's some other artists who, like, you know, I feel like they don't even listen to noise really. I mean, or they listen to noise, but like they don't really like get. They're not really following all the shit. What's the newest shit? They're focused on their work.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Not really
Then
involved in the rest.
Yeah, then there's the dudes that drop like one tape a year, if that, and are not involved like in the social shit, like keeping up with other motherfuckers got what they got going on, or trying to tap in with labels or whatever, or other artists, and they expect the whole world to be at their fingertips. They expect everyone to just be. Yeah, it's like you can't just drop nothing a year and expect everyone to herald you as like the GOAT. It doesn't work that way. You have to be active. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be in. You either have to drop shit or be involved with the social aspect, or both. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, you just can't.
Or neither.
That.
Or be, you know, on the outskirts doing your thing, and be happy with that. I mean, like, there are artists, there are a lot of also great artists who do that. They pop up once in a while with some great new interesting work, and then that work either, you know, that work speaks for itself. It, you know, it makes big waves. Sure. It's like, oh shit, new album or new tape from so and so. Yeah. After a few years, and fuck, it's good. Yeah. But then, like, that's, they're not part of the, they're not playing the game, or they're not part of the scene, and I respect that too.
Yeah, I when it's done like in a manner like that, where they don't see, artists like that don't have that expectation of oh yeah, I can just do that, and then motherfuckers, I need them to acknowledge me every step of the way. Like they don't do that. They're just on their own vibe. But there's fools out there who are like, you know, I don't got to do anything, but I still got to get my respect. It's like, no, bro. Like, you're either an artist and a participant, or you're not that. You know, like, drop something for me to legitimize who the fuck you are.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Who are some other kindred spirits? You know, there's Mac, of course. Who are some other folks that are working and active that you know, strongly resonate with, or are, you know, supporters of, or feel a strong connection with artistically?
For sure. Jackson, who does Junta Cadre and Hurricrat, that's like, can't speak highly enough about him. He's amazing. He really, and he does Commuter as well. Like, he really puts a lot of effort into what he does. And he's very thorough, and the music he makes is just really incredible, just like really solid. Whatever project he's doing, just know that he puts a lot of care and effort into it, and he's not satisfied with the bare minimum. He's like, I'm really impressed by his work ethic and his music and all his artistic output. I'm really impressed by him, and he's just he inspires me. Because he's so solid in all of that. And like I said, he's one of the few dudes I like collabing with, because he's just straight up and straightforward and knows what I want, and he knows what he can get out of me. And that there's something to be said about that because, like I said, I've tried to collab with a couple of people before, and it's just it's weird. It gets weird.
Mm-hmm.
People like, I think when you collab, you have to like kind of be open to like feedback, or you just have to approach the collaboration relationship like you don't know as much as you think you know.
Right.
Like I have to humble myself when I come up to somebody and be like, let's work, and I can't be coming in with all the things that I think I know and like throw it on them and be like, hey, you have to work within my parameters of the understanding of music. It doesn't work that way. And I notice a lot of people like, they'll be like, oh, you've been in the game since 08, 09. You don't know what you're talking about. I've been making music since last year. This is what it needs to be. This is what it's like. No, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Jackson he's just a fucking beast, man. He's a fucking beast. Like I played a show with him, and he's a hell of a performer too. Like a hell of a performer. He's got good stage presence. All of his approach to music is really good, and you know he's out there field recording. He fucks with synthesizers. He's got a very simple approach when it comes to his recording process, and it's just like that's what you need. You just need that. You just need that, and that's enough to inspire me. And then he's super solid, and then the homie Matt, who does Misery Engine, is pretty fucking good too. He's been putting out hella shit.
Yeah.
And I grew up watching this dude play in this band called Indiscuss.
Yeah.
So like I was a fan of him.
Yeah.
But he was in my town, he was in the best band from my hometown in San Jose.
Yeah.
And I didn't know him, but I always watched him play. I was like, they're the hardest fucking band out of San Jose. And then now this fool does power electronics and shit, and he's fucking good at it and he's smart. This motherfucker knows everything about synthesizers.
Yeah.
And he's new to that because I think it's because he knows how to play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know how to play guitar, you know how to read like chords and all that shit. I don't know anything about that. It's so foreign to me. So I think he saw it, and he has a crazy fucking output right now. Like, and it's all solid shit. It's all solid shit. So it's like he's getting his name out there and he's putting his shit out there. So if people listening haven't tapped into either Hurricane or Misery Engine or Junta Kaja or Commuter, all that shit's available. Please go and listen to that.
Cool. You being from California, you've grown up San Jose, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you grew up, and that's where you're living now. Is that correct?
I live in Oakland now. I've lived in Oakland for 10 years. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You live in Oakland, yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans of moving out of the Bay Area?
Not really. I mean, California is a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where you go, we have a lot of problems here without getting too much into it. But honestly, I'm from here. This is my home on many different levels, ideologically, going back to the Miscreant Aslan shit that I was talking about. Like, ideologically, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
Spiritually, this is where I belong. Yeah. I have all my people here, all my family, all my loved ones, all my friends. Like, I really don't see it in the cards, me going anywhere else. I just, like, it's just all about trying to make the shit work, you know? Like, at this point, the game, due to the pandemic, the game is, like, I can be anywhere and do what I gotta do.
Right.
But, so as far as I'm concerned, like, with all the problems the Bay Area has and all the problems California has in general, like, if my main focus is making music and shit, then I can be here, I can be anywhere, but I'd rather just be here. Yeah. I hope this place changes, but I doubt it, but we'll see what's up.
At this point of our discussion, I'd like to ask you to tell me your top 5 power electronics releases of all time.
Okay. In no order, we'll go Anunzaphalia, Ephemeral Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go Anunziphilia Ephemeral Dawn. We'll go Grunt, Seer of Decay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go Condom, Color of a Man's Skin.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go. Is that 4?
That's 3.
That's 3. I went to continuation high school. Sorry. We'll go Genocide Organ. Remember, that's like their perfect.
Yeah.
Like it's like all the best.
Yeah.
Shit.
Best up compilation.
It's the best. So it's like you just give that to somebody. The CD's still available. If motherfuckers don't have that, they should get that.
Yeah.
Genocide Organ. Remember, and then Prurient. Man, it's a toss-up between 3 Prurient albums.
Mm-hmm.
Black Vase. That one's so good. Underrated.
Yep.
Pleasure Ground.
Yep.
And Shipwrecker's Diary. You ever heard that one? On the Ground Fault?
I might have heard it. I might have it back like in my collection way back in Minneapolis, but it's not one I've listened to much.
Yeah. It's a tie between those 3. They're all very different. But cool. I would say probably Black Vase was like influenced like Miscreant shit.
Yeah.
Pleasure Ground influences like Crawl of Time shit, and then Shipwrecker's Diary for just like the sheer intensity of it all.
Yeah.
So cool. That's pretty much my list right there.
Good list. And now can you give me 5 releases of the past year or so? You know, it doesn't have to be the last year, but last year or 2 that you really fuck with?
Dude, lately, is it me or does it just feel like it's a reissue? Like the reissue game is fucking crazy right now. Like,
yeah, I mean it's been heavy for sure. But
yeah,
there's still a lot coming out. But there's a lot of reissues too. Yeah,
so it's like, fuck, man. The last year. The God is War LP on Phage was that shit's fucking is hard as fuck.
Yep.
This is Services Rendered by Jason Krumer.
Oh yeah.
This shit, anything this fool does, I'm gonna buy it. It's fucking good.
Yep.
And then the new CD. Yeah, then the new CD.
All of his 3 newest albums are really good. They all came out.
Yeah, so like all of those.
Yeah.
The Commuter CD on Phage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the common denominator here is Phage and Jason Krumer. Like that's the shit that interests me. And then like the reissues and shit. Like just like cool little reissues of like Incapacitants or whatever, you know what I mean? That I can get my hands on. That I'm not gonna spend like $100 on, but I'll spend $50 on. You know,
right.
I'll get shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
So the reissues that have been coming out, the homie shit on Phage, and then Jason Krumer shit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll take that. Cool. Well, what have you got coming up in the next year? I mean, what are your plans? Are you guys, as KOUFAR Carousel unit, planning on doing any touring now that things are opening up again? Or you got any albums in the works? Any solo Crawl of Time stuff going on?
Yeah. So I have. Me and Mac are working on this Carousel unit thing. We're trying to get it just right. It needs to be perfect. Because that's where we're at this stage in the game, where like if Carousel unit's gonna come out, it needs to be like fucking razor sharp. It can't be one thing that's out of place. But we have, as far as Carousel unit goes, that project isn't done yet, but we have something that is done that's coming out on Angst, and that's
Death to Oakland.
Death to Oakland's coming out on Angst.
I dubbed
that. Oh yeah, you did? Oh, awesome. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah! So if you already heard it, then
Yeah,
so
I've heard it. It is. It's really fucking good. I mean, it's old, right? But it's. I think it's really good.
Yeah, it was the last recording Mac and I did here in Oakland. So it's the end of that era. So everything else you hear from Terracellian is after that era. Cool. But yeah, that shit is hard as fuck. Like, I love that shit. So Death to Oakland on Angst, and then I got a CD coming out on Phage for Crawl of Time, and then an LP coming out on Cloister.
Cool.
I just need to get the art shit wrapped up with that, and then I got that stuff coming out. And then as far as shows for Terracellian It, we got some stuff in the works. Max got a lot of stuff coming up, God is War wise.
Yeah, and, he's on a big tour now and stuff like that.
He's on tour right now, and but like he comes home and then he goes back on another tour.
Yeah, probably by the time this airs, he's back home. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we got like some bigger things coming with Terracellian It, like recording wise, and then we're trying to do maybe a tour or two based off of those recordings. So that stuff has to get hammered out in a different kind of way. It's not like where I can just I just hit this person up, and it's done. Like shit is. The deeper you go in this shit, like the harder it is to like hammer stuff down. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah, but we got some shit coming up with that, and then KOUFAR. I don't think there's anything with KOUFAR that's popping off, and that's the project we like to do when something is the fire has to be just right for Mac.
Sure.
When we get that going. Because, like, he just tells me what to do and I do it.
Yeah.
With that shit. Like, yeah, so with that, we're just, whenever he's ready to do something and he feels inspired to do that, then we're going to move on that.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you sharing all that with me.
Of course. Anytime, man.
Anything you want to let people know or add before we... wrap it up?
I just want to shout out to Mac for being the homie, and like you said, by the time this airs, he'll be back from tour, and I hope he had a great, successful tour. I saw him already. That was cool.
He came through Oakland, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I hope all his shows went well. I want to shout out Patricia, I love you. I want to shout out to my homies Adam, Luke, and Drew. Love you guys. And all my family back home in San Jose. Love you guys.
Cool.
That's it.
All right, man. Well, thanks again.
Of course.
Take care and talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks again for tuning into White Centipede Noise Podcast. Head over to the Patreon for more, including private episodes of Noise on the Run, exclusive photos, video, and audio related to the show, and discounts at the White Centipede Noise mail order. Your support is extremely appreciated and vital to keep the show going.